We think we know this song, a soft confession, a tender melody, a chorus you can hum in the dark. But listen closer, and you'll hear something else. A mind tightening like a fist, a mask slipping, a villain pleading to be seen. The dark meaning of Behind Blue Eyes isn't just melancholy. It's a guided tour through the private prison of rage, isolation, and the burden of being watched by the world. It begins in 1971 when The Who stand at the height of their power, smashing guitars, filling stadiums, four men roaring like a storm, and in the middle of it all, Pete Townshend is quietly building a different kind of storm. Lifehouse, a sprawling science fiction rock opera about control, freedom, and the possibility that music itself can set us free. That grand project will collapse under its own weight, but from the wreckage, a handful of songs will survive, blinking in the light. One of them is Behind Blue Eyes. It isn't written for a hero. Townshend imagines the voice of Lifehouse's antagonist, a man who polices the grid, enforces order, carries the anger of a whole system in his chest. He's the bad man, but he's also a person. He has rules. He has shame. He has longing. And crucially, he has blue eyes. The colour of innocence, the colour of English stoicism, the colour we're taught to trust. The song dares us to step into those eyes and look out. But there's another layer. Townshend's story goes like this. One night on tour in Denver, a woman invited him to betray the vows he'd made to his wife and to his spiritual teacher, Meher Baba. He walked away, back to a lonely hotel room, where the adrenaline had nowhere to go. That pressure, fame without privacy, desire without release, power without peace, turned into a kind of prayer. He wrote to stop his hand from closing. He wrote to stop the blow he felt building inside. That prayer became this song. The villain's voice is also the artist's voice, a confession of how thin the line really is. On record, that confession arrives with disarming gentleness. Roger Daltrey, usually the lion, sings in a hush, as if he's the one person this man trusts. Acoustic guitar, sparse drums, a melody that feels like a hand on your shoulder. This is how manipulation works, the song suggests, not always with a snarl, but with the soft gravity of someone asking to be understood. We lean in. We want to understand. And then the song turns. The music surges, the drums crack open, and the temperature in the room changes. What had been restrained suddenly thrashes and clenches. Harmonies darken, guitars bark. It's not just a musical shift, it's a psychological one. The inner code bursts into the open, broadcasting rule by rule, demand by demand. This is the flare of the suppressed, anger dressed as principle, control disguised as discipline. The structure itself is the message, a man who starts as a whisper and becomes a storm. When the storm passes, the voice is calmer, almost apologetic, almost tender. The cycle completes. Shame, restraint, explosion, retreat. It's the rhythm of harm and remorse, repeated until it starts to feel like fate. The song doesn't justify the behaviour, it simply refuses to look away. It leads us through the circuits of a mind that believes it is both righteous and broken, both condemned and deserving of care. There is danger in empathy. The song knows that. To listen to a villain is to risk getting charmed, to mistake vulnerability for innocence. But the dark meaning here isn't an alibi, it's an X-ray. It reveals the machinery of self-justification, the insistence that nobody understands, the fantasy of persecution that lets violence feel like vengeance, the conviction that if only you could be truly seen, you would be forgiven everything. Behind Blue Eyes is a study in how loneliness can harden into cruelty, how the performance of pain can hide the practice of control. And yet, it's also a plea for accountability, starting at the most private level. Townshend's spiritual struggle runs like a filament through the song. Meher Baba preached restraint, compassion, the deconstruction of the ego's demands. In that hotel room, the rock star and the disciple collided. The song becomes a tightrope between those poles, between the godlike feedback of a stadium and the silence of a prayer. The dark meaning is not only that the bad man seeks to be known, it's that the artist sees the same contours in himself and refuses to lie about it. Culturally, the track slips its original setting and haunts new decades. The Who cut it into the granite of Who's Next, where it sits next to anthems of defiance and transcendence. A small, morally ambiguous confession sewn into a monument. Decades later, a new generation hears it again. A cover version boils it down to pure early 2000s ache, pairing it with the glossy despair of a Hollywood thriller. The melody remains a trapdoor. Listeners keep falling through it. Some hear only sorrow and miss the steel underneath. Others hear only menace and miss the grief. The truth is both, fused. The song's real trick is to make us complicit. When we sing along, we try on the point of view. We mouth the rules, we feel the sting of being misunderstood. We ride the crest of that middle section surge. It's thrilling, cathartic, and unsettling. What are we releasing? Whose mask are we wearing? Behind blue eyes is a mirror you don't expect to hold. You meet the gaze. Sometimes, the gaze looks back like your own. None of this works without the tension between writer and singer. Townshend writes as the confessor. Daltrey sings as the avatar. The man who built the maze hands the microphone to the man who can get lost in it and still sound like a god. That alchemy is part of the darkness too. Charisma can make anything sound reasonable. Beauty can sell the ugliest thoughts. Blue eyes can hide a storm. In the end, the song offers no verdict. It doesn't redeem the villain, and it doesn't condemn him to the flames. It does something more unnerving. It sits with him. It listens to the cycles. It maps the triggers. It shows the relief that follows the outburst and the hollow that follows the relief. It shows how a person can be surrounded by noise and still plead for a single, true note. That is the heartbeat of the dark meaning. Behind blue eyes is not purity. It's not even sadness, not by itself. It is a closed system of longing and control that can break outward into harm if no one, least of all the person living there, learns to unclench. The song was born from a moment when someone did. It survives to describe what happens when someone doesn't. We think we know this song, a soft confession, a tender melody. But inside it, the villain breathes, the artist admits, and the listener is left with a choice, to hum along and forget, or to recognize the fist forming and find a way to open it before it falls.